Good morning, students. Welcome to the Strive 365 Current Affairs free classes. In this series of videos, we will be covering the entire last one and a half year current affairs that will be useful for your excellence in the Prelims 2025. These classes will be covered by the experienced faculty who has mastered the Prelims code, and there will be different faculty as per the subject. And already we have done 3 classes of the international relations. This will be the 4th lecture of this international relations. So let us go into the topic directly. So today we will be beginning with the main topic, that is the some of the treaties or the conventions or the agreements that are in the news. So all this will be covering under this particular subpart. Okay, so let us begin with the today's class. So the topic in this is about the genocide convention. So yesterday, while we are discussing in the class about the international criminal code, I have informed you that we will be discussing about the genocide convention. So this is also in very much news, so we have to know all the details about this particular convention. Why it is in news? For one particular reason, that is the International Court of Justice has gave its interim ruling where the South Africa's genocide case was filed against the Israel. So in the International Court of Justice, South Africa has filed a case against the Israel on the matters of genocide against the Hamas and the not against the Hamas, it is against the Gaza and that Palestinian people in those region. Now clearly we'll be looking into what is this particular genocide convention. The name that we popularly call as genocide convention is officially known as Convention on the Prevention and Punishment of the Crime of 1948. So in this, it has codified the crime genocide for the first time, and then it also the first human rights treaty that is adopted by the United Nations General Assembly. These are the important facts you have to remember for the prelims. And then the definition of the genocide. The definition is being defined in this particular convention as in the Article 2 of the convention. So what is the definition? Any act, as we have discussed yesterday, any act that is committed with an intent to destroy in whole or in part a national or ethnic or racial or the religious group. So any act that is done in order to wholly or part destroy these particular groups, religious, racial, ethnic and national groupings. And according to the convention, it is a crime. So they have defined what is a genocide, and then they have given it that it is a crime that takes place both in time of a war as well as during the time of a peace. So it is not just a war crime, it is also can be taken up during the time of the peace also. And then what is the membership? So the genocide convention has been ratified by 153 states. See, remember, there is a difference between signed and ratified. So this can be a wordplay in the prelims. Always remember, signed in the sense when we are taking part in the discussions about the convention, countries will come together and sign that and pass that resolution. So that is what it is signed. But when we say about ratified, because there need to be some part of changes that has to be made to our domestic laws also. So we have to give away some part of our sovereignty. For that to happen, any body will not have the authority to do without the permission of the parliament. So it has to be done by the elected representatives. So that is when the parliament has to give the bill has to be passed in the parliament, and that is when we call it as the ratified, or the executive, that is the president sign has to be given on that. So president will give the sign only after the particular passage of the bill in the parliament. So that is when it is called as the ratified. So India has signed this in 1949, but we have ratified it in 1959. Okay, and what will be the responsibilities on the state parties, whoever is signing this one? So they will have an obligation that they should not commit any genocide. That is for sure, because it is defined as a crime. And then they also have to take measures to prevent and punish the crime of genocide. So not only they should not commit a genocide, but also take some measures so that they will be preventing as well as punishing the people who are doing in this crime. So, and then they have to pass some relevant legislation and then give punishments to the perpetrators. However, India did not enact any legislation to this subject. So we have ratified the convention that we are a member of this one, but we have not kept the provisions of this particular measures to prevent and punish the crime of genocide in our particular parliament legislation. That is what you have to remember. So we are a signatory, yes. We have ratified the convention, yes. But we do not have any legislation on this subject in India. That is true. Then jurisdiction. So in the jurisdiction, the ICJ, the International Court of Justice, hears the cases which are related to the interpretation and application of this convention. So any problems and regarding this convention or any doubts or interpretation required in this regard, that will be under the jurisdiction of the International Court of Justice. Then what are the other key informations we can remember about this for prelims facts is that the definition of the genocide crime as set out in the convention has widely adopted at the both nationals as well as the international levels. So it is one of the most prominent one which has adopted, and then including in the Rome Statute of the ICC. So this International Court of Criminal Court also has included this particular genocide convention. So that you have to remember. This is all about the genocide convention. Now we will be discussing about the bilateral investment treaty, that is BITs. So why it is in news? India and Uzbekistan have strengthened their economic ties by signing a BIT. So where they will be having this mutual investment opportunities, and then they have to enhance basically the investment criteria in this between these two countries, and then any streamlining of the mechanism that is required to go for the smooth running of the investment flowing between these two countries. That is what basically the crux of the bilateral investment treaty. So now what is a BIT? So what are the facts you have to remember about the BIT? It serves as a reciprocal pact between the nations to safeguard investments made by their citizens and companies in each other's territory. So it is a reciprocal pact because both countries has to offer the both what are the conditions that are placed in this particular treaty. For example, if country A and B has undergone into the BIT, so these countries, these are the geographical locations of the countries. Now some X company, Y companies belonging to this, and then L and M companies belonging to here. Now this X and Y companies have investments in this country B, whereas the L and M countries have investment in the A. Now it is the obligation of the both the countries A and B. So it is a reciprocal. So the A and B, both countries have an obligation to protect the investments of this X, Y, L, M. So all these particular, so their domestic funds as well as the companies from the other country. So this is about the reciprocal pact in order to safeguard the investment. In India, we have this law, Indian Model BIT Act of 1993. So using this, India has signed the BITs with the 83 countries, of which 74 for force till the 2025. Until 2015, we have 74 BITs were in force out of the 83 BITs we have signed. But in 2016, India has revised this particular model BIT, and then from there onwards, India has signed new BITs only with 4 countries, and it is currently negotiating with 37 countries. So all the earlier 77 countries, with the 77 countries, everything was terminated, and we have only maintained this BIT with the 4 countries due to some of the issues in the particular the treaty. Then the model BIT, what it will do? It will ensure the foreign investors, they receive the equal treatment as the domestic investor. That is what we have discussed now. So the country which is hosting the companies from the other country should treat them equal with their domestic investors, and then has to provide them national treatment provisions. And also it has to safeguard them from any expropriation by the limiting country authority. So not just the directly state or any particular authority in this particular nation or the state, if it is acting against the, or it is acting in a irrational manner or the unjust manner towards the company which has the invested in from the other country. In this regard, it has to be taken care that the nation have the responsibility to protect that particular investments also. So it mandates exhausting local remedies before the international arbitration. What it does is, if what happened, if this kind of there is a controversy, because so there was an issue, if you can remember, the Kane energy issue is there, or the Vodafone issue is there. So these kind of issues involves the investments and companies from the different particular countries. So in that time, what will be happening usually? So in order to go and resolve this issue, the act that is taken place is the international arbitration. So where we go to the arbitration courts from the outside world. So there will be a third person who will be interpreting this one and passing the order. So that is what it is done. But BIT is what it does is, before going to the international arbitration, both the countries will sit and discuss this particular thing. So in order to resolve themselves and not raising the conflict further. So this is all about the bilateral investment treaty. So why it is in news? Because India and Uzbekistan have signed this. Now, the next particular treaty is the Indus Water Treaty. Is very much in news and very important because the growing controversies associated with the Pakistan. So then, now if you see about this particular thing, it has signed in 1960 between two countries, that is the India and Pakistan. And remember, it is brokered by the World Bank. So the World Bank is also a part of this particular treaty and it is also a signatory. What is the main objective of signing this Indus Water Treaty is that the treaty has fixed and delimited the rights and obligations of both the countries concerning the use of waters of the Indus River system. So Indus River system, regarding whatever the issues are there, the rights has been given and obligations has been placed on these both countries. That is why the main purpose of this signing the Indus Water Treaty. And what are the provisions under this particular about the water usage rights is the first, the Indus Water Treaty allows the India will get the unrestricted use of the three eastern rivers, that is Ravi, Bais, Satluj. So these are the tributaries of the Indus River. So the Ravi, Bais, Satluj. So these particular three eastern rivers, India will get the unrestricted access. So there is no restriction on it. But Pakistan will have the control over the three western rivers. What are these rivers? Indus, the main river itself, and then the Jhelum and the Chenab. Because these have a significant impact on the Pakistan, because the geographically it passes through the Pakistan and merges in the Arabian Sea. So that is why Pakistan has been given control for these three western rivers. But so because we are the upper riparian country, that means it flows through our country, and we can restrict this particular river. So we should be on the upper side of this particular treaty. So for that matter, India has given a provision in this for this western rivers also, that some certain restrictions can be placed for this particular three western rivers, such as the run of the river projects can be there. So we should not basically block the water. So we can build some projects such as irrigation projects, transportation, power generation projects, which are run of the river. That means will not interrupt the flow of the river. That you have to remember. So if you can see in the map here, so this is the Indus River. That is the main river of the Indus. And then the Ravi, Bais, Satluj. So these three are majority, they have their drainage system mostly in the Indian part of this Indus watershed. So this is where these eastern rivers has been given to the India. And then if you can see, Jhelum, Chenab and Indus also going through the Indian only, but the majority part of this particular thing is going in the Pakistan. So for this region, in order to not have further escalation of this situation based upon a water crisis, so India, as a goodwill gesture, it is one of the most appreciated treaty in the world, because India, being a upper riparian country, did not show any arrogance in this regard, despite the hostilities with the country Pakistan. And then we have signed this treaty, providing the socio-economic relief by not escalating the water crisis for the Pakistan. So this is all about this one. And then now we have to see some of the implementation steps that are involved in this particular Indus Water Treaty, because with this Indus Water Treaty, we will be having this three-step procedure where we will be solving the disputes between this. And now the main part, this dispute has arisen between India and Pakistan, and this is in the news. Okay, first is about the implementation, how we are going to implement this particular treaty. So this treaty requires that there will be a creation of the Permanent Indus Commission. So there will be a Permanent Indus Commission where one commissioner from the each country will be there in this regard, and they will be given this obligation to maintain a channel for communication, because there is any dispute, two negotiating parties has to be on the table. So in any issue, if you can see between the international countries, bringing them onto one table is one of the biggest issue. But if you have a one permanent commissioner who should be there for this particular issue only, then it will be easy for them to communicate. And once the communication takes place, something comes out of that particular negotiation. So, and then they have to maintain this channel of communication, and is required to meet at least once every year. It is mandatory. Every year you can meet at least once. If you have any particular disputes and want to negotiate in that regard, you can meet more than that also. Now, what is the 3-step dispute resolution mechanism in this regard for this Indus Water Treaty? So here, the first step is the Permanent Indus Commission. As we have now discussed that there is a Permanent Indus Commission, and then the commissioner from the each country will be there in this regard. So the first step is, if there is any dispute or any question regarding this particular treaty or the implementation of the treaty, these two particular commissioners will sit together and discuss and try to resolve the issue then and there itself. Then, if suppose the first step is not gave a favorable outcome for anyone, or not satisfied with one or the two countries are not satisfied with this, or they are completely not able to bring on a conclusion of that particular negotiation, then it goes to the neutral expert. So there will be a neutral expert appointed by the World Bank. So the World Bank will appoint a neutral expert to deal with this particular differences or the disputes that are in this about the water sharing or anything that is going on this one. And then now, if this neutral expert will give a binding decision, so whatever the decision has been given, that will be binding on the parties to implement. That is the second step. And even though the countries are not satisfied with the second step, then at the final step, it goes to the court of arbitration. So if the neutral experts is failing, then it comes to the court of arbitration. Here, the court of arbitration will give you the binding decision, and that will be the final decision. Okay. This is what it is there. Now why it is in news is that the Pakistan has called for a what will be saying the appointment of the court of arbitration, even though when the dispute is already there in the neutral expert. So basically, there is two mechanisms, that is step 2 and step 3 are simultaneously being raised, being asked for from the Pakistan, and then World Bank has appointed it. Now India has been challenging this regard that there is nowhere in the treaty it has mentioned about the simultaneous steps that will be taken up in between these two particular neutral expert as well as the court of arbitration. And India is also questioning that what if the neutral expert gives one verdict and the court of arbitration gives another verdict, and whose verdict will stand? So this is why it is in the news. That's why you have to remember about the Indus Water Treaty. And then the next one is about the Summit for Democracy. So this is in the news. So because recently the Prime Minister of India has addressed the third edition of the Summit for Democracy. So in this way, we have to look into what is this Summit for Democracy. So first, the Summit for Democracy it is launched by the US in the 2021. And the summit has emerged as an important platform where the democracies will share their experiences and learn from each other. So sharing of the experiences and learning from each other. With this motto, it has provided a platform for the democracies, and it has launched by the United States of America in the 2021. What is the aim of this particular summit? Strengthening the democratic institutions as well as protecting the human rights, and then finally accelerating the fight against the corruption globally. These are the main aim of the Summit for Democracy. And then now here, the Presidential Initiative for Democratic Renewal. So it is launched during the first summit. During the first summit, the Presidential Initiative for Democratic Renewal is launched in the first summit, and it supports the initiatives, all those initiatives that are looking for the advancing technologies for the democracy, and then defending the free and fair elections, and then the independent media. So what are all these mechanisms? These are all involved in a proper democratic setup. So this free and fair elections, independent media, all these things. So that is why, in order to strengthen all this, along with the emergence of the technology, so that is why we need to use this particular technology to strengthen these mechanisms. That is what it is covered in the Presidential Initiative for Democratic Renewal under the first summit of the democracy in 2021. And then US, the United States of America, so that is called as the mother of democracy, provides the financial aid for this particular initiative. And India is a participant in this because India is the largest democracy in the world. So you have to remember these facts. And then the next important is about the nuclear weapons. So the CIPRI report, you might have heard about this one. The CIPRI report is very famous, that gives the context as well as the data related to the military expenditure and then the military production and the exports in these all information. So SIPRI stands for Stockholm International Peace Research Institute. So this SIPRI has released a report called the SIPRI Yearbook 2024, which has highlighted that a concerning rise in nuclear weapon development and deployment. That means this report has shown significant rise in the nuclear weapon deployment and development. So the difference between development and deployment is development is when they research and introduce one particular or the some particular nuclear weapons. But deployment, it is placing in strategic locations or where it can be put to use. So that is a difference. And then Russia and USA together possess almost 90% of the all the nuclear weapons. So this is where you have to remember that. So the nuclear weapon. So the Cold War era politics has led to the rise of these nuclear weapons, particularly in these two particular countries, Russia and USA. Now, what are the treaties that are associated with this and the non-proliferation efforts that has been taken place? So treaties and the non-proliferation efforts. So the first important one is about the CTBT. You might have heard about this one. That is the Comprehensive Nuclear Test Ban Treaty. Okay. This bans all the nuclear explosion tests on the earth. So outrightly, the CTBT gives a ban for the all the nuclear explosion tests on the earth. And next, we have one more treaty, that is NPT, non-proliferation of nuclear weapons. So what it is saying that? It is saying that limiting of the spread of the nuclear weapons to non-proliferation, disarmament and peaceful use of the nuclear energy. So should not proliferate the nuclear weapons. You should disarm whatever you are having, and then you have to use this particular nuclear energy for peaceful purposes. That is one example is the electricity generation. In this particular two treaties, India is not a signatory. India did not sign this because we are having a nuclear program. So that is why we cannot go for a comprehensive all ban on this one. And the second thing is in NPT. So NPT says that whatever the countries that are having till the deadline, they can withhold that particular nuclear weapons, and slowly they have to disarm those particular things. But India is objecting that because those countries will dominate the world if they are allowed to maintain those particular nuclear arsenal. And then another particular important is about the International Convention for the Suppression of Acts of Nuclear Terrorism. This will criminalize any planning, threat, execution of acts of the nuclear terrorism. So, and India is signatory for this. You have to remember, because this is banning the nuclear weapons by the terror groups. Okay, and then nuclear security summits are held, and then participants will unanimously adopt the goal for securing these things. And then Conference of Disarmament is again being held in 1979, established. It is a multilateral disarmament negotiating forum by the international communities, and India has been a regular and the active participant of this one. So what it will be doing, it will be conducting the conference, and it asks and demands and controls the negotiations regarding the disarmament of the nuclear arsenal. And in the nuclear security summits also, India usually participates in this regard. Then comes the ICAN, the International Campaign to Abolish the Nuclear Weapons. It is a coalition of the NGOs. So it is the NGOs that are promoting to the adherence and implementation of this particular United Nations Treaty on the Prohibition of the nuclear weapons. So United Nations Treaty on Prohibition of Nuclear Weapons. So this particular ICAN is promoting for the implementation of this particular thing. So this is a landmark global agreement which was adopted in the New York 2017, and India has not signed this. Remember, ICAN also won the Nobel Peace Prize in 2017 for its efforts. So these are about some of the treaties as well as the non-proliferation efforts in this regard. So, and there are some other agreements also with respect to the other weaponry, that is control of the dual-use weapon or chemical weapons and all this. So there is a small assignment for you. Please read about the Wassenaar Arrangement, MTCR regime, all these things, and then NSG group, all this, and then you can comment about those in the comment box. So that way you will be doing your own work and the revision also. Now, as we have come to discuss about the nuclear as well as nuclear energy, so there comes the two important things. One is the nuclear fission, nuclear fusion. So it is important what to know about the differences between these two in respect to this particular nuclear weapons. So first, what is a fission weapon and what is a fusion weapon. The fission weapon is usually referred to that as the atomic bombs. So we all know that the fission is about the breaking away, that is the breaking of the atoms, particular atoms. But fusion is the combining of the particular elements or the atoms from the elements. So fusion weapons are referred to as the thermonuclear bombs, or more commonly hydrogen bombs. So this is the basic difference between a fission weapon as well as the fusion weapon in the terminology used. So atomic bomb is the fission weapon, hydrogen bomb or the thermonuclear bomb is the fusion weapon. Then U-235 isotope of the uranium. U-235 isotope of the uranium will serve as a primary fuel for the weapon, that is for the fission weapon. And for the hydrogen bomb, so it initiates the fusion of the hydrogen, that is potentially the deuterium and the tritium. Between those things, the fusion will be taking place, and then the enormous energy will be releasing. And here the U-235 fission, so it splits the atom, releases the energy and neutrons for the explosion. Here, as we have discussed, deuterium and the tritium, which are the isotopes of the hydrogen, are used for the fusion process. So this is what it is done in this regard. And then the energy output. So a ton of explosive TNT to 500 kilotons of TNT is released by this. That is huge. But hydrogen bomb yields megatons of TNT. This is even more powerful than that one. This is 1,000 times powerful than that of the atomic bombs. So here we have given a picture of the mechanism, how the nuclear fusion bomb will work and how the nuclear fission bomb will work. You can have a look at this when you can download this PDF from the Telegram channel. Please join our Telegram channel. The link is provided in the description. And then you can check out the international Strive 365 international relations current affairs summary. Next, moving ahead with the next particular topic, that is about the Indus X initiative. So the India-US Defense Acceleration Ecosystem, that is the Indus X, was launched in June 2023 to build a defense innovation bridge. So the defense innovation bridge between these particular two countries in order to strengthen this particular initiative of the ICET, initiative on critical and emerging technologies, that is the ICET. For this particular thing, the Indus X has been launched in June 2023. Now, the Indus X will facilitate the partnership between the US as well as the India's defense companies and incubators. So these particular companies, which are from India and US, will get together in accelerating the ecosystem related to that of the critical and emerging technologies. Now, what are the particular achievements of this Indus X? So there can be a question, what is the Indus X that is recently in the news? There can be an option maybe saying about the Indus River. So you might even confuse in that regard also. So that is why you have to know what is exactly this thing. And then the commercial collaborations will take up between the defense companies of these two countries. So for example, the DRDO will take collaboration with its counterpart in the USA, this kind of thing. And then exploration of the modalities for the joint innovation. So it is not just the exchange of the products or the exchange of the technology, it is also can be a joint development of the technology also can takes place. And then one initiative is there, Indus X Gurukul, that is a hybrid information series for US and the Indian defense startups. So some hybrid information will be provided to the defense startups, that is Indus X Gurukul. Then industry academia linkages are also covered under this particular, where the technology transfer, licensing and all this will be taken place in the academics also. Now with this, we'll be seeing about one of the important facts about that India-US Defense Technology Cooperation, how the defense technology cooperation between the India and the United States of America stands. This is where in 2016, if we see, the US has designated India as the major defense partner. So remember, India is the major defense partner for the USA since 2016. So what are the key defense agreements that are there? These are the 4 defense agreements that are important for the India-US defense relations. First one is the LEMOA, that is the Logistics Exchange Memorandum of Agreement. So there will be a enhanced exchange of the logistics between these two countries. So whenever there is an supply chain regarding to this logistics, it will be covered under this agreement, and both countries has to facilitate for that. Then communications compatibility and security agreement, that is COMCASA. It is signed in 2018 because the communications, both nations has to communicate with regard to the security issues, and then they have to work on these particular aspects. Then industrial security agreement in 2019, and then comes the basic exchange and cooperation agreement. So there will be a normal exchange and cooperation between these two countries in that regard with respect to the defense technology manufacturing or the cooperation. So you have to remember these are the four important. There can be a simple question about that, the LEMO or the expansion logistics exchange memorandum of agreement seen in the news is between which of the two countries, or there can be a matching question. There can be some other agreement with the another country, and these countries are given in a matching, and they will be saying that rightly match these particular agreements with the countries. These kind of questions are asked. Some kind of questions are already asked in prelims, and there can be a high chance that that can be repeated again. Next, we will be seeing in this regard about the ICET. That is what we are seeing. That is the critical and emerging technologies initiative for the critical and emerging technology. Why it is an umbrella framework. Under this particular framework only, whatever the defense arrangements such as the Indus X, these are taking place, it is going to happen, and it covers the commercial as well as the defense both. It is all about the critical and emerging technologies, both commercial and normal. And then US India roadmap for the defense industrial cooperation, this is there in order to fast track the technology cooperation, and then any co-production of that mutual interest is there. That is where it can be taken place. So this is what it is all about, the defense cooperation between the India and the United States of America. Next important thing we will be looking into is about the Colombo process. So in the Colombo process, India, why it is in news? Because India has chaired, that means has got the chairmanship for its first meeting as the chair of the Colombo process. So recently for the Colombo process, India has got the chairmanship, and India has underwent its first meeting in this year 2024. That is why it is now about the Colombo process. What is this Colombo process? It is a regional consultative process that provides for a platform for consultations on the management of overseas employment as well as the contractual labors. So each country will have their exports. So the exports also include services. The exports also includes the manpower, that is the labor which is being sent. So in this way, so there is a huge chunk of Indian population who are going outside the country for acting as a labor, or they undergo under the contractual labors. So that is why it is a regional consultative process where there will be establishment of one particular platform. That particular platform will overlook the overseas employment, what is the conditions and the terms under the contractual labor of this particular thing. Then it comprises of 12 member states. This particular Colombo process comprises of 12 member states of the Asia. So this particular thing is there for the Asia for now. That is the Bangladesh, Sri Lanka, these kind of countries are there. And India is one of the founding member. Remember that India is the founding member. And what are the some themes that are given priority in this are the skills and qualification recognition processes, fostering ethical recruitment practices. So this mechanism, this management consulting tool will look into the aspects where the skill and qualification is being recognized or not in facilitating these jobs, or else ethical recruitment practices are followed or not. These particular things, these themes are covered under this process. That is where these 12 member countries will sit together and discuss and provide provisions for this overseas employment and contractual labors. And then the UN's International Organization for Migration, it will provides the technical and administrative support to the Colombo process. So the United Nations International Organization for Migration will provide this technical support. Also, now it's also known as the law of war or law of arms. So this is where now we will be discussing about the international humanitarian law. This is the next one. Yeah.
Sir, sorry for the interruption.
Yeah.
Sir, today when at the what time class was started?
So it started at 11 o'clock today.
Achha, okay. So I was not able to join. So I thought I have problem in my mobile. So that's why I was asking.
No issue, no issue. Thank you. Okay, let us continue with the class. So the international humanitarian law. So this is the next particular thing that we have to discuss. So it is short form called IHL. It is also known as the law of war or the law of armed conflict, because it gives you the set of rules that seek for the humanitarian reasons to limit the effect of a armed conflict and protect the persons who are not or who are no longer participating in the hostilities. That means what? It is basically a law of war. That means what? It gives you rules for any country that is involved in the war, so that it can restrict the armed conflict, so that the humanitarian assistance can be taken place. That is providing food or anything to the injured or the people who are the civilians who are suffering in that region. Suppose if there is a huge influx of the population to one particular region, so which is in the war, due to that they came suppose to the one particular area which they think that it is safe for them, and then now this humanitarian law will give the rules in order to not attack on that particular region, because the huge influx of the people or the civilians has come to that place. So this is the international humanitarian law. That is the 4 Geneva Conventions of 1949, that and its 3 additional protocols is any some modifications to that particular convention. These forms the foundation for the international humanitarian law, and then this has been universally accepted and ratified by all the nations in the world. So it is the all the nations which has ratified and accepted this particular thing. Now, so the international human rights laws that are different from the IHL. So what is this international humanitarian law which we have discussed now? This particular thing is different from the international human rights laws. This is the human rights. In what ways? The international humanitarian laws applies exclusively in armed conflict. That is why it is called as the law of war or the law of armed conflict. But whereas IHRL will be applied both in peacetime as well as the armed conflict. You have to remember these two. There can be a question on this. The change of words can be given in this particular regard. And then now when we speak about the international humanitarian law, it binds all the parties to an armed conflict, establishing an equality of rights and obligations between the state as well as the non-state side. So it can be any authority, any party. So it is a state or a non-state party. If it is involved in an armed conflict, it provides you the equality of the rights and obligations. But whereas international human rights laws, IHRL, is explicitly governs the relationship between a state and the persons who are in its territory or the subjects of its jurisdiction. So only that particular state which is signatory and that particular people who are residing in the territory or comes under the jurisdiction of this IHRL. So these are the two main differences between the IHL and the IHRL. So now what are the other treaties that are concerning the IHL include means? So IHL, the International Humanitarian Law. So this also includes some of these conventions, such as the Hague Convention for the Protection of Cultural Property, and then Biological Weapons Convention, and then the Chemicals Weapons Convention, and the Rome Statute for the ICC. These all conventions are included into this international humanitarian law. What are the main principles of this? This you have to remember. Important principles is the principle of distinction. That means distinguish between the all times. You have to distinguish between who are the civilians and who are the combatants or the military persons. So there will be a civilians and there will be the militants or the military or the combatants in a war. So the civilians has to be differentiated from them. That is the principle of distinction. It is important. Next, principle of proportionality means any incidental harm that might be caused directly by an attack or indirect attack. Suppose there are some thousands of civilians present in one particular place, and then some 10 to 15 militants has joined in that mob. So now you have to establish a principle of proportionality. What? In order to kill those 10 people, you are going to kill all those thousands of people, or you are going to attack or take the risk of attacking on that particular region. So these particular things has to be taken. So you have to make a proportionate action against the people. So you can go for a covert operation or anything in that way, but you should not going for a mass attack on that people. That is the principle of proportionality. And then the principle of precaution. So whoever is the party to the armed conflict, they have to take a constant care to spare the civilian population, civilians and the civilians objects in order to conduct all the military operations. That means you have to facilitate one pathway. If I am involving in a war, I am going for a war with other party, then I have to facilitate a way. So this area we are not going to attack, and the civilians can pass through this area. In case of Israel Hamas also, it has been given that the entire, it has given a warning that there we are going to launch an attack, and the people all should leave their houses and go towards the south. So that is what it is, the directions that has been given to the particular parties, or the people, civilian people should be careful in that regard. So this is about what are the India's efforts that are concerning with the enforcement of the IHL. Is that the in constitution, if you can see, the article 51 states about the international peace and security. And then the second one is military training. We are providing military training and the awareness programs under this initiative. Then peacekeeping. So India is one of the largest troop contributor of the United Nations peacekeeping forces, as we have discussed what is about the blue helmets in the last class. Then engagement with the non-state actors. So dialogues with the non-state actors also has to take in place in this, because you, however, you can neglect those non-state actors also, but they significantly form part of the armed conflict. So it is your responsibility to reach out to them. If you're not going to reach out to them, and if you want to face the force with the force, there will be a huge repercussions on the civilians also. That is why engagement with the non-state actors is also very important. So this has been repeated. So we have discussed about the Colombo process. Now India as well as the global south. So you might have heard about this word global south a lot of times. So it is important because the India has hosted the third Voice of Global South Summit in a virtual format. So India also has hosted the first summit in 2023 and the second summit also in 2023, run up to the G20 summit. So during that time, it has held twice in the 2023. One time it was virtual and one time it was a physical one. So that is and now currently the third Voice of Global South Summit has been held in a virtual format. Now, what is this particular Global South? What is the term that refers to the Global South? It refers to usually technically and socially less developed countries. That means by technologically wise or the societal wise, it is usually the less developed countries which are located in the southern hemisphere. So it is usually the primarily the Africa, Asia, as well as the Latin American countries which are usually in the southern hemisphere. So these are the socially and technically less developed countries. And now where this word has come out, it has come out by the Brandt report. So there is this Brundtland report which was submitted, and it has given a distinction of division between the north and south countries based upon their, they considered various parameters such as the technological advancement, GDP and all. So if you can see this line, so this is called as the Brandt line. So this Brandt line has been drawn, and whatever the countries which are north or the up of this particular Brandt line are called the north, the global north. That is the north, rich north, or that below that one, whatever the countries are there as the, those are called as the poor south. That is the global south we call. So it has nothing to do exactly with the geographical locations of anything, because the Australia has been exempted it is as a developed country. So now this is what it is saying about the global south terminology, and what are the initiatives that are taken up by India for the global south. That is important for us. First, the digital infrastructure support. So $25 million as a social impact fund has been provided for the digital public infrastructure development. So in the DPI, that is a digital public infrastructure, India is one of the leading country, and it is being dictating some mechanisms for the even the developed world also. That is why we are promoting this digital public infrastructure, and then for that we are giving this support of the social impact fund for the global south. And then diplomatic development. In order to have a good diplomatic development, Young Diplomat Forum is launched for the education and capacity building, successfully advocated now for the African Union's permanent G20 membership. See, by doing a proper diplomacy, we were able to make the African Union a permanent G20 member. That is what it is also there. Then healthcare outreach. In terms of the healthcare also, we are looking for an outreach. That is the Arogya Maitri. That is One World, One Health initiative. And then the first Jan Aushadhi Kendra is established in the Mauritius. This also we discussed. So this is all about the particular global south and the India's initiative towards this global south. Now we'll be seeing about the security of supply agreement. What is the security of supply agreement in this regard? So why it is in news? Because India and US has signed this security of supply arrangement and a memorandum of MOU on the liaison officers during the India defense minister's visit to the US. So recently, the India's defense minister has met with the US visited the US, and there the security of supply arrangement has been signed, and then MOU has been signed on the liaison officers. Now, what are the key details of this one? What is the key details regarding the SOSA? That is mutual timely provision for the defense related goals and goods and services during the peacetime as well as the armed conflict. So what it is saying that timely provisions, we have to provide the all the commitments timely with respect to the defense goods and services. And now the both countries are to request the priority delivery of the specific defense items. So all has to be time boundly delivered goods and services, and also if there is any specific defense items, that has to be given the priority. And then India has become the 18th SOSA partner for the US. So the arrangement is legally usually not binding, but it is just a formality agreement. And then mostly as a convention, both countries will be adherent to that, but there is no legally binding in this regard. You have to remember that SOSA is not legally binding, and there can be a statement like India and US. So India is the first SOSA partner for US. No, it has already 18. We are the 18th SOSA partner, so it has already there with the 17 countries. And also the negotiation is also going on the reciprocal defense procurement arrangement. Okay, so if there is a whatever the some arrangements we are providing, they are providing to us, so some reciprocal, they also take some obligations to buy some defense products from us. So this is the reciprocal defense procurement agreement, it is going on. And also we have discussed that there is also a MOU that has been signed on the liaison officers. Why it is? In order to increase the information sharing and deploy the Indian officers to the key US strategic commands. So wherever in the US strategic commands, there will be one liaison officer, one or two or set of liaison officers from India, so that the communication will take place in a better way. Now India will send its first liaison officer to the US Special Operations Command in Florida. In this way, what happens is the trust will be building between these two countries. Also, the India will also will get first hand experience about how the command structure that works in the America. So this way, so the liaison officer can go and understand their way, and we can be implementing better outcomes, as we can be implementing better provisions from that particular regard. Now India and US defense cooperation, just we have seen what are the milestones. We'll be roughly seeing that in 2016 major defense partner we have been declared, and then formal defense relationship was in 2015 framework will define this. Now this has led to the strategic trade authorization tier 1 status. It has been given to us in 2018. Then 2+2 meetings, these are the very important, because so both the defense minister and the foreign ministers of both the countries will simultaneously meet. Foreign and the defense ministers simultaneously meet, and then they will be establishing the strategical ties between these two countries. And then the 2023 roadmap is there, that is for the cooperation in the undersea domain awareness, air combat, and all these regions. Then ICET is there, India US initiative to enhance the strategic technology. As we have discussed, under this only the Indus X for the defense innovation has been promoted also. Now we'll be seeing about the Pact for the Future. So what is this initiative? So the Pact for the Future, it is in news because along with its annexes, the Global Digital Compact as well as the Declaration on Future Generations, along with these two, has adopted a consensus at the UN Summit for the Future. UN Summit for the Future, in order to tackle the 21st century challenges like the climate change, conflicts, human rights, etc. Now, a small group that has been led by the Russia has opposed it in the UN. This you have to remember. This is what happened. The Pact for Future, it has been along with the Global Digital Compact and the Declaration Future Generations, has been adopted a consensus at the UN Summit for Future. Why? In order to deal with the 21st century problems. So what are the key deliverables of this pact? One is about the sustainable development and financing. What? Increasing the representation of the developing countries in the international financial institutions. So what are the international financial institutions such as the World Bank, IMF, and all this? So the developing countries representation has to be increased. And then also strengthen the global financial safety nets in order to support the poorest people or the poorest countries or the less developed countries. And then international peace and security. So it has recommitted to the nuclear disarmament. So this has been under the international peace and security. Now that is about the pact for the future. And also any other technologies that are leading to the weaponization and making it as such a lethal autonomous weapons which are building, that also has to be prevented. Prevention of this particular thing has been taken. And also in the science and tech and innovation provisions, we have the ethical science and tech research, safeguarding indigenous knowledge, all this there, emerging technologies has to be taken care, all this. Then we have the youth and the future generations. In this we have they need to be included in the decision making mechanisms, and then transforming global governance. For example, we have this framework strengthening for the outer space governance and preventing any arms race that is being taken place in the space. Also UNSC, reforming of the UNSC in order to address the Africa's underrepresentation, Africa's, Latin America's, and all this underrepresentation has to be taken place. So this is more of a mains perspective, but remember some of the initiatives from this, and also remember that the pact for the future, that is the along with the global digital compact and the declaration of future generations, has been adopted a consensus at the UN summit for the future. Now we have this next initiative, that is the green strategic partnership. So what is this green strategic partnership? That is between the countries India as well as the Denmark. Both has signed the MOUs to strengthen maritime relationships under the green strategic partnerships. Under this one particular green strategic partnership, both the countries India and Denmark has signed the MOUs. Now what is this about the GSP is that it is established in 2020. It aims to expand the economic relations and promote the green growth, also create jobs and address the global challenges. It is more of an economic relations and the sustainable development. Simple words, it is about the sustainable development. And what, as it is said, it is mainly focuses on the Paris Agreement as well as the UN Sustainable Development Goals. Also, a joint action plan between these 5 years outlines a specific actions that has to be advanced in the partnership. So some set of actions has been provided by this particular partnership, and under the joint action plan that has to be implemented. And what are the areas of collaboration? Usually quality shipping, port state control, and maritime training and education. This is more about the blue shipping. We have heard about the blue economy, blue shipping. This perspective, it is there. That is where the maritime relationships has been strengthening between the green between the India and Denmark for the green strategic partnership. So at this point, we will be ending our class for today, and then we'll continue our lectures with the international relations current affairs in the upcoming classes. Now, if you are having any, if you are liking our initiatives and gaining something out of this particular initiative, or you are able to revise or recall particular topics in an easy way, please like this particular video and subscribe to our channel. Also, join our Telegram channel and then get this particular PDF from them, from the files section. Also, this is where we will be ending our class. Thank you for watching, and please show your gratitude by liking and sharing this particular with your other friends, whoever is preparing for the prelims exam. Thank you.